You are not alone. We affirm it in the prayer for protection. Wherever we are, God is. We are never alone. And yet, why are there times when I feel so alone? When I have felt so alone? Last week I shared with you a song that was written from one of the books that was in the Nag Hammadi library, Protanoia. It meant first thought. I'd like to share with you now a verse from one of the books that was also found in that same library. It's called the Gospel of Thomas, and it was found nearly complete. And I'd like to share just one saying with you. Saying number 48. It's on the screen behind me, so you can look at it and allow it to seep into your unconscious, because sometimes we hear and sometimes we need to read. But I'd like to read it for you now. Jesus said, "If two make peace with each other in a single house, they will say to the mountain, 'Move from here,' and it will move." I'm not going to explain it. If two make peace with each other in a single house, they will say to the mountain, "Move from here," and it will move. Just sit with that for a moment. You are not alone. Things have happened in our life, though, that make us sometimes feel alone. Mary O'Malley, who wrote this book, shares a few things about how we came to this state. If you'll remember from last week when we talked about fear and the storyteller, most of these fears began as early as 6 years old. Some of these, what she calls spells, might have begun even earlier than that. She says there's basically 8 spells. These aren't spells that some witch cast on us. In fact, if there was a witch that cast them on us, it would have been the storyteller that's inside us already. These are just figures of speech, because there is no storyteller really, is there? But these spells are just as real, and yet they're an illusion. There's nothing real about them except how they affect us, because we allow them to have this effect. We have choice. And as we begin to see them and notice them with our compassionate curiosity, they begin to have less of an effect on us. She divides them into 3 different categories. And they progress one out of another as we developed the storyteller in our consciousness. And the first one is that I am separate from life. And as I think back on developmental psychology and I remember things, that when I'm an infant, when I was an infant, get that tongue untangled. There was things that Mother had above my crib, these little noise makers and dangly, sparkly things that were fascinating to the infant who hasn't figured out yet that there's an out there and an in here. That there's a me who's separate from all this fascinating stuff. And then one day we realize that, hey, we are separate. It might be when peekaboo doesn't have an effect on us anymore. When peekaboo, oh, I know she's coming back. She didn't really go anywhere when she covered her face. And we realize then that we're separate. We think we are anyway. We put this belief in ourselves that we're separate. Not long after that, we're probably not even 6 yet. Things happen. Maybe our diaper doesn't get changed fast enough to suit ourselves. Or we're really hungry and Mama's really busy, Daddy's really busy, and no one gets to me with the bottle fast enough to suit me, even though I'm bawling my head off and I'm crying. They're just not listening. And we realize that life is not safe. It gets reinforced when we reach out and we touch the hot stove. Life is not safe. And so we've got this belief. This is one of those spells. Life is not safe for me. And so what do we have to do? We're going to build a cloud. These are the clouds forming now. Remember when the alien came down and saw us in this beautiful meadow? But we were surrounded by a cloud. And we were running around with a butterfly net trying to capture things that would make us feel happy. Or trying with a fly swatter to swat away those things that are making us not feel good. When all the time we're in this beautiful meadow. Well, another one of those spells. I must control life. I must be in control. I can do things that make me feel safe. But here's the kicker. I still don't feel safe. I must do it right. I must do it right so I can feel safe, so I can be in control. It's so necessary for my survival. I have to do it. Okay, key, remember that key. We're separate, so I have to do it. And here's another kicker. Since I still don't feel safe, I mustn't be doing it right. What am I doing wrong? And because I'm not doing it right, I must be wrong. I must be wrong. There must be something wrong with me. Now we've gotten, see all these spells we're putting on ourselves? These false beliefs, these illusions. If I'm wrong, if I'm not safe, I must be unlovable. I must be. Who would want to love someone like me who can't get it right? It's another spell, though, because it's not right. We're all beloved children of God. But we got that spell on us. And out of that one, of feeling so unlovable, of undeserving, I am all alone. I'll never forget my first divorce and how I felt alone. Alone. This house was empty. I didn't even have my dog. I was all alone. But we know that's not true. We know it's not true. Because God is always with us. Wherever we go, wherever we are, God is. It's useful to have a list like this because it helps us to observe what's going on with us. So we can look at ourselves and know if we're getting into one of those spells. If one of those spells are taking hold of our consciousness. Because you see, they lead in this natural progression to the fact that we're not apart, that we are all alone. And there's no worse feeling. If you think back to primitive societies, what's the worst thing, a fate that was even worse than death? To be banished from the tribe, to be left alone. They would have rather died than to be banished and left alone. And that's still part of us. It's in our unconsciousness. But we're never alone. We're never alone. So that leads me to a new technique. We have that compassionate curiosity that we can look at. We can use this to help us to discover these spells. But I want to bring another one to your mind, to your practice today. And that's the question. You see, if we ask a question and we already start going in our mind to try and answer it, okay, what happens? Let's say I'm trying to remember somebody's name. I see them like, I know their name, I just can't remember it. It's right there on the tip of my tongue, but it's not coming to mind. And then what's the best technique for remembering that name? Forget about it. Do something else. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, I remember your name. Your name's Maria. I remember now. How did that happen? It just came to us. And it came to us when we let go of trying to answer the question. Because as long as we're trying to answer the question, we get no answer. Well, that technique of letting it go works with more complicated questions as well. There's something going on there, and we don't know what it is, but it does work. I can't think of so many times I've been trying to remember something, and I've let it go, and then, oh yeah, okay, it's right there. It's right there now. It's right there. So, it's important what questions we ask, though. So, in relation to these spells, what are some questions that we could ask? I want to share some of those questions from what Mary O'Malley has said in her book. This is some of her favorite questions. What am I ready to see here? What am I ready to see here? And then let it go. Maybe go into meditation. Maybe just take some breaths. Let it go. What is the way through this? There's something going on here in our life, and we are struggling. And we're getting clouds. The clouds are building. All of those, we're under a spell. One of them. Maybe several. Deep breath. What is the way through this? Let it go. What do I need to say, do, or be that is for the highest good? How can I serve? What am I? What am I? What is asking for my attention? So I'm in the middle of all this stuff. It's all going on. What is asking for my attention here? Probably something here. Something here, somewhere in me. And if none of these questions work, and I like this, how she says this, ask life. You know, if you don't like the word God, just ask life. Because isn't that the same as asking God? I like that. She says, just ask life. What are my questions? How about that? What question do I need to ask here? And it comes to you at just the right and perfect time. Just like what we said in the prayer. We may not get an answer immediately. We probably won't. Because that's not how it works. We got to let go. And then that answer comes in unexpected ways. I can remember very recently, and if you're taking the Course in Miracles, you've heard me speak about it already. I was in the middle of some stuff. There was clouds all around me. And I was asking and I was praying hard, but I was praying about the situation. I wasn't asking the right question. But I got my answer in A Course in Miracles. Lindsay said, just ask God, how can I see this in a different way? And that was my answer right there. And I knew it was. As soon as she said it, I said, that's what I've not been doing. You know, if we're praying about the lack, we're going to get more of the lack. You know? How can I see this in a different way? Because I already have everything I need. It's already right here. I got it inside. I'm created in the image of God. I'm a beloved child of God. And I'm never alone. How can I see this in a different way? That was my answer. And I didn't get it by thinking about it, because the more I thought about what was going on in this cloud, the more I got more cloud. I don't know what spell I was under. It was one of them. Maybe a bunch of them. But it worked when I asked the question. So I want to remind you again about that saying in the Gospel of Thomas. Maybe we can talk about it a little bit when we get in our circle. Jesus said, if two make peace with each other in a single house, they will say to the mountain, move from here, and it will move. Now, I'm thinking about the mountain, right? Okay, so what in the other Gospels, where's this mountain that moves? If faith the size of a mustard seed, you can say to the mountain, move, and it will go there, or go to this, or the tree will uproot itself and grow in the sea. I'm also looking at, if there's two that make peace with each other in the single house. Well, who is the house and who are the two? I'm not going to answer. I got an idea. I know you do too. But let's remember, no matter how the clouds are surrounding us, and no matter what that storyteller wants us to believe, you are not alone. You are not alone.